The European Commission presented a package yesterday of guidelines and recommendations for lifting travel restrictions. Are the airlines happy to see this?
Well, the airlines are in principle always happy when the European Commission is trying to coordinate things in Europe. And what we certainly would not like to see is the way this crisis started by one country after the other in a very uncoordinated way, closing its borders and having travel restrictions in a non-coordinated manner. So what the Commission is trying to do with what it announced yesterday is very plaudable. We hope with the Commission that the member states are actually listening, and we would hope that the Schengen countries, to start with, that they actually join forces and that we know they are talking to each other, have been talking to each other for a while, that they come forward in a coordinated manner, and also very important that they implement the measures that the European Commission and EASA will propose very soon in terms of health and safety and health measures, that they actually will do it in a harmonized and coordinated.
The European Commission is defending the rights under the Air Passenger Rights Regulation to have reimbursement rather than a replacement voucher. What is the response of Airlines for Europe on that?
So what we propose, because airlines are really struggling to survive here as a sector, and they're really getting short of cash, is to offer, first of all, a voucher with a validity of up to 12 months, the same value of the originally booked ticket, or also to defer payment, defer cash payment for a number of months. So at the time that airlines are actually in a much better position to provide those.
When you speak to the operators that you work with and with different governments across the EU, is there a support for your position? Because the Commission appeared to be taking a very firm line on this question.
So the situation today was that not less than 16 member states have supported our position. That is allowing the option of a voucher or a deferred cash payment, because the majority of the member states, 16 member states, those who supported our position represented more than 70% of the EU's population. So it's a large majority of member states, if you will, that actually are proposing flexibilities, a temporary amendment of this regulation.
On seat spacing, one of the issues that's been raised is the question of how would it be safe to travel? And some people have suggested that maybe seats could be kept free between passengers. Is that economically viable for airlines?
Well, first of all, there's the aspect whether it would make any difference to leave, for instance, the middle seat free. If you think about the social distancing rule of 1.5 meters, it doesn't make any difference. So that's the first point. It's actually wrong to say that it would make any difference. Secondly, social distancing. I mean, you know how an aircraft looks from the inside, but because of the already safe and relatively healthy situation for the aircraft, because of the filtering systems we have inside that actually work quite well, because of the continuous airflow, refreshing every 3 hours air, the chances of people being infected aircraft is close to zero. Yeah. And in fact, social distancing on board of an aircraft is actually not necessary.
For example, if I turned up from my flight and my temperature was taken, would if it was over, I don't know, 40 degrees or whatever, would that be something that would mean that passenger won't get to fly, or they'll be stopped at that point?
So the European Commission issued yesterday a number of guidelines for different modes of transport, and they've done the same for aviation. And they've recognized that aviation actually has had so much experience unfortunately, because of other crises, be it 9/11 for security reasons, SARS, again, a very infectious, a virus crisis. It's because of that that the Commission said, well, basically, aviation can basically deal with it. EASA, as we speak, is developing guidelines for airports and airlines on how to deal with the matter. So there are sort of layers um, of measures, health measures we can apply both outside the airport, in the airport, and on board the aircraft. So these measures are now being developed, and measuring of temperature is only one of them. So there are many others we could implement. But as I said, we have to wait for the ASA guidelines to know exactly what this will mean for the airport